Hi, welcome to Free Spirit and welcome to the Divine is Feeding You deck is here. So it came so much sooner than I thought it would, and I am so excited. So by the time you see this video, it will be available at the link below in the description box, on the About page, on my website, where all my other decks are. But yeah, it definitely came a lot sooner than I thought. So surprise, surprise, the Divine is Feeding You. This is, all my decks come in a pure white full top box, and I don't put the title here. The title will be on the one instruction card that the Divine is feeding you. So yeah, the Divine is feeding you. So I am really excited. And then the other deck that's at the printers, it should be another week or two. And so I'll definitely let you know when these come out. I just wanted to say this is a smaller deck, you know, just like the Real Divine Self-Care, just like the Pure Love from Spirit. The other decks that I have, the large decks that have 80 to 90 cards, are the thicker tarot size. So I did the smaller deck because I like to keep things as affordable as possible. So my newer decks are smaller versions. At some point in time, I was thinking maybe I'll, you know, try and make a full-size deck of the smaller versions. But for now, they work perfectly. So yeah, so this is like a normal size tarot deck, and this is the smaller decks. And so the big decks I have are 80 to 90 cards, and they're huge decks, and these are 44 cards on the smaller decks. So this is, yes, the Divine is feeding you. So I know I showed a sneak peek, but this is what the cover of the deck looks like. 44 cards with the instructions, and it's definitely to feel and know the Divine is feeding you love, support, backing while you're using these cards and all throughout your life. And it was called the Divine is feeding you because it's through your divine connection. It quite literally, like a connection, you're being fed. There, it is a feeding, right? So this is the cover of the deck, and right here is just going to be clean messages, clear messages, just like all my other decks. It's natural photographs with the messages. So here it is again, and I'm so excited it came back so much sooner. And you know what's so funny? When the decks come in and the package was there, it's almost like I didn't want to open it up because you don't want to be disappointed if it's not right. And I remember the weekly, it says, you're going to like the way you look. You're going to like the way it feels. And yeah, I do like the way that it came out on the first try, which is practically unheard of, to be honest with you. So yeah, so I really do feel like this is such a divine gift. They made it relatively easy for me to create it, is what I'm saying. So I almost feel like in the process, it just felt delicious to me. But this is the Divine feeding you. And of course, the first card is Divine Love. The Divine feeding you divine hope. The Divine feeding you divine ideas. The Divine feeding you divine wisdom. The Divine feeding you divine energy. The Divine feeding you divine solutions. This has come up a lot. And I'll do readings. You'll see me do readings with this deck as well on the channel very soon. The Divine feeding you divine guidance. The Divine feeding you divine strength. The Divine feeding you divine power. The Divine feeding you divine confidence. The Divine feeding you divine focus. The Divine feeding you divine abilities. The Divine feeding you divine creativity. The Divine feeding you divine strategies. Sometimes it feels like two cards. It's a thick card stock. The Divine feeding you divine steps. The Divine feeding you divine patience. The Divine feeding you divine resiliency. The Divine feeding you divine flexibility. The Divine feeding you divine help. The Divine feeding you divine messages. The Divine feeding you divine signs. The Divine feeding you divine support. The Divine feeding you divine lightness. The Divine feeding you divine clarity. The Divine feeding you divine changes. The Divine feeding you divine freedom. The Divine feeding you divine awareness. The Divine feeding you divine control. The Divine feeding you divine outlooks. The Divine feeding you divine actions. The Divine feeding you divine work. The Divine feeding you divine mindset. The Divine feeding you divine heart set. The Divine feeding you divine successes. The Divine feeding you divine partners. the divine feeding you divine happiness, the divine feeding you divine releases, the divine feeding you divine trust, the divine feeding you divine comfort, the divine feeding you divine calming, the divine feeding you divine peace, the divine feeding you divine healing, and the divine feeding you divine abundance. So these were 44 cards. That's including the instruction card. And basically, let's get a message, like how I would use the deck. This is all to get love, support, backing, not just while you're using the cards, but to feel that all through life. But this is what the divine is feeding you through their connection with you. And so let's tap in and get just, you'll see me use it when I use multiple decks all at once. And they'll show me how I have an idea of where I'm going to be using it, but we'll see as we go. But here we're going to get quick messages. For right now, the divine is feeding you. What is the divine feeding you? Let's just get some messages for right now. Ooh, it landed on, by the way, this is the cover. Because whenever I do a reading on the channel, this heart reminds me the divine is feeding you. And that was what was used. These are natural photographs. This was actually this in the card. I mentioned that before on the sneak peek. This landed on it. So this is the #1 card. The divine is feeding you divine awareness. So the divine could really be bringing really divine things to your awareness at this time. So you might be finding aha moments, just seeing things in a whole new perspective. They're just having you be so much more aware. They're giving you, it's up a notch with your divine awareness at this time, and they're feeding you divine hope at this time, despite everything that's going on. And you're going to find that there's an increase in your connection and in your divine awareness, and that they're feeding you divine hope, to the contrary of everything else that's going on in the physical right now with the crazy and the chaos, that they're no doubt feeding you divine hope. Let's get some additional messages, but this is just a sneak peek, quick messages, but normally I would use this with a couple of my other decks. And what I'm realizing too is now that this was number 12, and the other deck, You're Supported to Bloom, is the 13th deck. And I do feel that it's now created a whole system so that everything is an ongoing conversation. And so very often you see me use all the decks in certain, I kind of set it up. You'll see me as I use it on the channel, that it builds on each other the way that I set it up, and I use multiple decks so it feels like an ongoing conversation. And so deck by deck, it does seem like it's building up so that it covers everything and you're having like an ongoing conversation. But right now the divine is feeding you divine awareness, and it's feeding you divine hope. And I knew that was going to come out. The divine is feeding you divine ideas. So no doubt about it, the cards that are wanting to come out, you're getting a real divine awareness at this time. It's keeping you very connected with them and almost a higher perspective. And you can become, you're utilizing divine awareness. And with that ability, that clarity of seeing things in that way, they're helping you. And also they're feeding you divine hope. And literally, it's despite the world and the crazy and the chaos, they're feeding you divine hope, divine positivity. It's good. It's your insides that are burning, and they're giving you divine ideas to act upon at this time. So no doubt it's through your heightened divine awareness, feeling divine hope, and then they're giving you the divine ideas to apply in your life, in the big and the small, in your work and your personal. And when you're given a divine idea, to apply it and follow it and act upon it, because sometimes they're seeds and you have no idea the benefits for yourself and others, but they're definitely feeding you divine ideas. So don't discount your divine ideas at this time at all. So this was a quick message: divine awareness, divine hope, divine ideas. This is the divine feeding you deck, and I'm so excited that it came out much sooner. So 44 cards in here, plus including the instruction card. And so yeah, so I'm very excited. And once the last deck, You're Supported to Bloom, is available, I'll show it on the channel as well. And yeah, and the links for all the free spirit cards are on the website, on the about page of this channel, in the description box. And it's mainly for those on the channel because I make all the decks personally for myself first. Just to give a background for those that are newer to the channel, these are all I did for myself first, and then for me to do readings for other people. And then I started to share them And I used to have an Etsy store, but then it wasn't available worldwide. So now you can just get it directly worldwide from where I print them. And it's just for those on the channel, really, who can use the decks like how I do. And they were all created for love, support, backing for life. And they all come, you don't need to know anything. All the messages are right on the cards. It always comes with an instruction card. You always shuffle overhand whatever comes out on your messages. It's all for love, support, backing. You hear all the sirens in the back? It's all for love, support, backing. All right, I wish you the best and take care. Bye-bye.